Hello there and welcome to the Card Grotto. Today I've got a quick and easy embossed resist card to share with you using Distress Oxide inks. So I'm starting off with this stamp here. This is the Floral sketch stamp from Craft Stash. Craft Stash have recently brought out a brand new collection of background stamps and they've kindly sent me a couple to try out. So I'm using this one here, really pretty design. They're all A6 in size because A6 is actually the standard size card here in the UK, but I tend to make American A2 size cards, so I'm going to see if I can make this work. So this is a piece of Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock and it's cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I'm placing my stamp down onto there, and I'm using the mini MISTI here just because it's quite a detailed stamp and I want to make sure that I'm stamping it out properly. So I haven't actually used this stamp before, so I'm just going to take an absorber cloth with a little bit of water on and I'm just going to run that over the stamp, and it's just going to make sure that there's no residue or anything like that from the manufacturing process still left on that stamp. I have tried to place the stamp so that it is kind of in the centre of that A2 piece so that I don't have to cut it down, and I'm using an anti-static tool here just to cover that watercolour piece, make sure that none of the embossing powder that I'm going to use doesn't stick to it where I don't want it to, and then I can ink up my stamp with Versamark ink. So I'm making sure to cover this stamp really well. It's a really detailed image, so just inking it up really well and then I can stamp that down. And I don't know how well you can see here, but I've tried to place that right in the centre of this A2 piece. And so there won't be any stamping on either side, sort of right and left of this panel. So just pressing down really well onto that. I'm using the smooth side of this cardstock, but there is still a little bit of texture. And then I can cover this with white embossing powder. I'm just going to tap off the excess and hope that that anti-static tool has worked really well and I haven't got too much excess hanging around. So just flicking that off, and then I can use the coffee filter just to pour the excess back into the jar. And then I'm going to use my heat tool here just to heat that up and make sure that I heat it so that it's completely melted. And now I'm going to add some colour onto my piece here. I'm going to use Distress Oxide inks. I find that they blend really nicely on this watercolour cardstock. So I'm going in with my first colour here, and this is Worn Lipstick. And I'm using the blending tool just to make sure that I get some really nice blending of those inks. And I'm using a post-it note just to cover my fingers, make sure that I don't get any of my fingerprints into the ink. And I found this tip over on Christina Warner's channel. I usually use just a plain bit of kind of scrap cardstock, but I really like the post-it note because it sticks to your fingers, so it moves as you move your hand, which is quite nice. So this colour here is Picked Raspberry, and then I'm going to go in with the Wilted Violet at the bottom. And like I said, I think these Distress Oxides blend really nicely between the colours. And as you can see, it's resisting that embossing powder. And if you have any left over on the embossing powder, you can just use a cloth and just wipe that away. So I'm going to go back in with the two pink colours here just to make sure that I get a nice transition between the three colours. And then when I'm happy with that, I'm just going to add some Shimmer Spirits onto this. This is Sparkle Shimmer Spirits. And I'm making sure just to add that quite high up onto the panel, and it's just going to give a nice sheen to that panel. Unfortunately, you can't capture it in the video, but it is really pretty. So here I have my Sizzix Sidekick machine. This is one of the original machines. I think it's about 15 years old or something now. But I managed to get hold of some of the new cutting plates because they've recently brought out a new Sidekick machine, and so the plates fit in this machine perfectly and you can cut thin dies with it. So I have the Simon Says Stamp painted Happy Birthday die here, and I'm just going to run that through 3 times onto some black cardstock. So just adding that happy in there, and like I said, I'm going to run each of those words through 3 times. So here I've got that panel that I've added the Distress Oxides onto, and I'm just using some adhesive here onto the back of that panel, and then I can stick that down onto an A2 sized white card base, and that's a top folding card base. And as you can see, I've got that kind of bits at the side without the stamping on. Personally, I think they work absolutely fine, but if you didn't like that, without the stamping on it, you could cut that piece down and that wouldn't be a problem. So here I've got my sentiment die cut words, and I completely forgot to stick it on the back of these. So I'm just using some liquid adhesive. This is the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. And I'm making sure that I don't add too much onto the back of this, but I'm going to just press that down onto a piece of scrap paper. This is just printer paper, and that just gets rid of any of the excess glue and stops it from squishing out the sides. So just using tweezers here just to place that sentiment down. And like I said, I did actually cut 3 of each, so I'm going to pop them on top of each other, and that just gives a little bit of added dimension to a rather flat card. I've been trying to make flatter cards recently, but it's quite nice just to have that little added dimension to it. So like I said, just using that glue, and then I'm going to stack those happy birthdays up. I did think about adding embellishments to this card, but I kept it completely plain and simple, but there is quite a lot of sparkle from that Shimmer Spritz. So that's the card finished for today. Links to the products will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.